Chairman Gottfried and honorable members of the Assembly Health Committee, thank you for the invitation to present my testimony today. I'm Dr. Sally White, a practicing physician who serves as medical director of a New York State addiction treatment center. I'm also a member of the American Medical Society and the Medical Society of the State of New York. I come today to ask you to support more and better end-of-life care and to oppose Assembly Bill A2383A. This bill is dangerous and misguided. The bill is dangerous not only because safe suicide is an oxymoron, or because doctors often make mistakes estimating life expectancy, but because the bill's so-called safeguards are unenforceable. There's nothing to stop an abusive relative or caregiver from using the lethal medications on an unwilling or confused, fragile patient. There's nothing to ensure that the person taking the medicine knows what's happening. I've investigated many cases of elder abuse in my years as medical director of the Franklin County Department of Social Services and of the St. Lawrence Psychiatric Center Mobile Geriatric Unit. Too often, New York State agencies don't prevent, protect, or prosecute, even when people suffer severe psychological and physical abuse. New York State Protective Services workers don't have the resources to address current cases. Removing people from abusive situations often takes months of intricate legal and logistical work. Administering lethal medication takes minutes. If this bill is enacted, terminally ill patients prescribed lethal medications would have no protection from abuse. Policing the use of deadly medicines by non-medical personnel in private homes simply isn't possible, no matter how carefully crafted legal definitions and procedures may seem. This bill does not extend compassionate, sound medical care to dying patients. Instead, it protects caregivers from being prosecuted for euthanizing those who are elderly or terminally ill. State reports from Oregon demonstrate the lack of oversight created by legalizing assisted suicide. No one knows who was with half of the patients dying under Oregon's so-called Death with Dignity Act when they ingested the lethal medication. Did a sick, confused person take the medicine by mistake? Was it crushed and put into applesauce without the patient's knowledge? Did someone hold the patient's shoulders and head until the medicine was swallowed? No one knows. It's possible everyone took the medicine willingly and knowingly, but I don't think so, because there's a second reality this bill can't eliminate. This bill can't ensure patients have a capacity to make life or death decision. Capacity assessment is a complex skill set. It involves evaluating patients' ability to make a specific decision about care according to legal competency standards. The more serious the decision, the more the patient needs to show he or she appreciates the benefits and consequences of alternatives. Few doctors have formal training in capacity assessment. This bill has no mandate for a referral for capacity assessment and no mandated physician training on how to assess capacity. More than 2/3 of patients show capacity impairment in the last week of life. If you've spent any time with dying people, you know this. So why would New York State send opioids and barbiturates home with patients we expect to lose decision-making ability? And what about the patient with a longer life expectancy? Chilling information comes from the first study of capacity in cancer patients expected to live less than 6 months. In the study, which was published in the American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry in December 2017, researchers documented diminished capacity in the terminally ill compared to a control group. 85% of ill patients could express a choice, but less than half could describe their medical situation and treatment choices. Only 15% could answer questions about the consequences of treatment and alternatives. Then the researchers looked at how often doctors' capacity assessments agreed with a standardized test consistent with legal standards. The answer, not often. Physicians regularly said patients' capacity was intact, while the assessment tool identified numerous problems. This means that terminally ill patients might verbally ask for lethal medication, but wouldn't meet the legal definition for competency. We can also assume that most New York State physicians need training in the intricacies of capacity assessment. So not only is enforcement of the protective measures of this bill impossible, most people who would use it probably lack the capacity necessary to make an informed decision about taking lethal medication. This is a very flawed bill. Humor me for a moment. Mentally, throw out the text of the bill. Keep only its title, Medical Aid in Dying. Now consider what kind of help you want at the end of your life. Think of the two most important things you want as you get close to death. I won't ask for a show of hands, but I think I know what you want. You want to die without pain, and you don't want to die alone. We need more and better end-of-life care in New York. Let's stop talking about physician-assisted suicide and work together to increase support at the end of life. The Medical Society of the State of New York has a few ideas for legislators. Last month, the organization unanimously passed a quality end-of-life care resolution supporting increased funding for various services which improve each person's quality of life as it nears its natural end. That's a quote. People wouldn't feel so hopeless if they had access to mental health care, in-home care, hospice and palliative care, and family respite services. Legislators, when it comes to end-of-life issues, if you can't do better than Assembly Bill A2383A, I ask you, please do nothing at all. I thank you for listening, and I welcome questions and comments.
Yeah, I have one question. You talked at some length about the danger of having not only, I think, opioids and barbiturates, but other medications that could be used to lethal effect in the homes of people who are terminally ill.
Right.
Do you or does anyone you know advocate prohibiting prescribing such medications to people who are terminally ill and who are in their homes?
I think it's good medical practice not to do that. This speaks to some of the dangers that occur with drug interactions. But first, barbiturates are not normal. They're not usually used in. They're not often used in medical practice, and the drug interaction between the opioids and the barbiturates are particularly lethal. Is that?
And is there any law that says, or do you advocate a law that says that a terminally ill patient who is choosing to live at home and whose pain can be ameliorated with controlled substances, are you in favor of a law to prohibit such prescribing? I've never heard anyone suggest that. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, no, well, I don't think that.
Oh, so the answer is no, you're not advocating that.
I don't believe that legislators should practice medicine without a license, okay? So I don't believe that you should have a law that micromanages a clinical judgment. But if you're talking about standard medical practice, it's good medical care. Is that what you're, I'm sorry if I don't understand.
Yeah, so you think the law should not bar prescribing medications that could have lethal effect to patients who are for use by patients in their homes. The law should not bar that. I just wanted to make that clear.
No.
Despite all the potential for abuse that you talked about. Okay,
No,
thank you.
not at all.
Ms. Paulin?
Is this working?
Okay.
You touch.
For this one.
Can you hear me now? No.
Yes.
Now, yes, thank you.
Yes.
I see that you're currently the medical director of a New York State Addiction Treatment Center.
Right.
Have you ever worked with dying patients as in your practice?
For about 30 years, I've worked with geriatric patients because and statistically, over 80% of the people who use Oregon's so-called Death with Dignity Act are geriatric patients. So there's an interface with that, yes. Many of my patients had terminal illness.
They had terminal illness.
Yes.
Did any of them have cancer? Or
Oh, yes.
Yes. And what is you had said that, it was important to make sure that what we'd all want is to have a painless death. Are you aware of medications that would totally ameliorate the pain under a dying cancer patient's on their deathbed, when they're suffering from pain? What medications are you aware of that completely ameliorate that pain?
I guess maybe I spoke when I said that most people desire to die without pain and not to die alone. I guess I have to say that the idea of a painless death is it's ridiculous. I don't know how else to say it.
So you're saying it's not possible?
Because and I speak.
So you're saying there's no pain medication that can ameliorate a
What
dying cancer?
What I'm saying has to do with perhaps an existential question as well as a medical question, in that life has pain and suffering. That's a reality, and I do think that doctors can ameliorate pain with medications. I think the presence of another human being, can ameliorate pain. I think there are many non-drug approaches to lessen pain. I think discomfort will continue, and whether or not the person defines that as pain is depends on the person.
Well, I don't know how many
palliative sedation works. Yes,
I don't
medicine.
know how many patients you've actually seen dying from cancer with morphine not working, but I can tell you that firsthand I have seen that, and that is a true statement. It's also, you also said the second issue is you want to die with your loved ones, or you want to have your family around, right?
Most people,
right. When someone is in hospice care or even at home, isn't it also true that unless you can plan your death, or unless you're willing to unhook from various machines or take away some medications, it's very hard to plan a death, therefore having your loved ones around at that moment?
There are a lot of things in your comment, and the first has to do, one issue that I think of when I hear what you say is the distinction between the right to refuse treatment and the right to ask for lethal medicine, which that right doesn't exist. But you can always refuse. You can always be taken off machines and such. That's not an issue.
I'm just going back to the two things that you said were important, what you believe to everyone, in fact, so much so that you didn't even think we needed to raise our hands, and that is that we want no pain, and we want to be around our loved ones.
Right.
And I just see a contradiction in the argument not to go forward with this way of preserving both of those under the current circumstances for so many terminally ill patients who are specifically dying from diseases that are extraordinarily painful. So thank you.
Can I just say that I'm asking this group to be creative in helping people die without pain and helping people not to die alone. I'm asking you to come up with ideas to support ways to keep people who are dying connected to the community, to get them the best care possible. That's what I'm asking. It doesn't take any skill to kill somebody. You don't need doctors to do it. If you want people eliminated, then why don't you create a profession for professional executioners? Because that's what you're asking. And I'm sorry if I sound frustrated, but I'm sorry to see what's happening here. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay.